Today I thought I'd talk about holons and holonic societies, as this seems to be another aspect of the design that causes some confusion. But before I do that, I want to start with a question. What does a high-tech sustainable society actually look like? Now, we've got plenty of examples of sustainable societies, but they're not necessarily high-tech. So we want to look around and see some sort of example, some sort of inspiration that we can get that gives an idea of what a sustainable high-tech society could look like. And in EOS we chose to look at nature. Nature provides us an example of sustainable ecosystems. There's been life sustained on this planet for thousands of millions of years. So these sort of systems have certain characteristics. They are distributed in nature. There's no centralized authority or control within these systems. You don't have one tree, king tree, ruling over a forest or something. Even with ants and bees, the queen ant doesn't actually rule. She's just another specialist ant within the ant nest. So there's no sort of centralized hierarchy or command in these type of systems. They're also very diverse. And they also form networks, interactions. So a tree, for example, by itself isn't anything. It has to interact somehow with the nature around it, whether it's birds interacting with its bacteria and its roots, or with other animals or plants or fungi or whatever. There's some sort of interaction. So we have in nature networks within networks that provide support and interactions between entities. So we have individual entities as well. This type of sort of system tends to be referred to as being holonic, or each element being a holon. Then a holon is one of these made up words that basically just means part whole, and it tries to capture this whole idea of an entity is itself an entity in its own right, like a tree is a tree, and you can study a tree as a tree. But for it to be an entity in its own right, it still has to form part of a network, so it's interdependent on something else. It's interdependent for its bacteria that could be in its roots that provide some of its nutrients, or maybe fungi in its roots that needs it to live, or it could have some sort of interactions with other things that perhaps not necessarily survival for the trees, like birds who nest in the tree. But there's interactions and interconnections going on all the way through natural systems. And this is what the word holon tries to capture, this part whole concept. Another example would be to say, look at cells in your body. A cell is an entity in its own right. We can study a cell by itself. But a cell by itself is nothing much. It has to connect up with other cells to form organs. And organs we can look at, heart, lung, liver, we can look at those as independent entities as well. But again, they all connect up and require each other to survive in a body. And then we can see a body as a single human being as an entity in its own right. But again, human beings form networks and social networks and interact with other human beings. So we have this sort of layered holons within holons within holons, is what we call a holarchy. But again, there's no centralized overall authority controlling all this. So a very distributed type of system. And in EOS we take that as a form of inspiration for our design. So we talk about having a holonic design built up around the idea of communities. A community up to say 200, 150, 200 people. Again, it's composed of other elements, which is the individuals. So individuals form communities. Communities interact and connect up with each other, form what we call urbanates. Urbanates form what we could have as legislative councils or whatever. So there's an interaction there of networks, connections, of hierarchies in this holarchy type of structure. Each one of these type of communities is a holon, like a cell, like a building block, like you can think of it like Lego, where you connect things together. So the whole thing is about networking, connecting, about interaction, yet we still have individuals and individual communities. Each individual community can have its own characteristic, same as each individual person has their own characteristic. You can identify a community by its individuality, you can identify individuals by their individuality. But they interact with each other, connect up with each other, network with each other. So their own, as it were, selfish best interest is served by being part of the network. The same as a tree its best interest is being part of the natural ecosystem around it. It has to have the bacteria, it has to have the fungi, it has to all interact with birds, etc. You have all these interactions going that support and keep something going. So again, we're trying to want to build a society where things interact, connect up and support each other. So you have a community that contributes something to the network. Then you get something back out of the network. If you get more out of the network than it could actually achieve as an individual group itself. So it becomes a self-supporting, self-sustaining, sustainable network. with each individual community a sort of self-sustaining, sustainable building block that manages its own energy, it manages its own waste, it manages its own materials, and keeps that within its own boundaries, like a cell. And then it provides bits out into the network and gets bits back from the network. So that's the sort of idea, and sort of bio-mimicry, where we're sort of emulating the distributed interaction, networking of nature, and how nature functions and how nature makes a sustainable system. We want to build that up within the communities, but not just in communities. We can also build it up within projects that can come and go, or perhaps projects can last for a lifetime, whatever. Projects last for a long time. These projects can also form like holons, made up of technical experts that are managing something, managing road building, managing train systems, or managing artificial intelligence systems, or something like that. Networks of teams of experts interacting as well. Again, examples of holons, interaction, networking, self-sustaining systems like that. So that's the sort of fundamental idea that we propose for building up a sustainable, high-tech civilization.